I'll call the Oak Park Heights City Council meeting for Tuesday, November 23rd to order. First thing on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is approval of the agenda, and we have one just additional item under consent, which is item H, joint powers agreements and resolutions relating to criminal justice data communications with the state of Minnesota. Are there any other changes or additions?
Move the approval of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is council staff reports, and I'll make a note of this for the next time after our work session, Carly. This last week, I attended the National League of Cities Conference and all of my appointments for the different committees that I'm on. As all of you were, or most of you were here, we had the bonding tour with the House of Representatives on Thursday last week. I attended the Bayport Fire Department advisory meeting, and there's a tentative date set for December 15th, and that'll be discussed in our council agenda later. And then there's a penciled in date for the Coalition of Utility Cities for a meeting on December 14th. Our president from the coalition, Greg Brzezinski, is leaving the city of Becker and is going to the city of Hibbing, so that meeting will be necessary to have a interim election. Then there's the Joint Airport Zoning Board meeting on December 1st. And then I got information from the League of Minnesota Cities regarding having a joint cities meeting either with just the mayors or councils, along with the League of Minnesota City staff and executive board. Date to be determined because it has to circle around and see what fits in everybody's schedule. That's all I have for now. Councilmember Doherty.
Yeah, we had the Cable Commission meeting a week ago Monday. Been working on our budget and kind of getting their budgeting kind of in order. Not that anything was wrong, but just getting things planned and having a replacement of equipment plan and things like that. So been working on that. It's kind of been interesting. And then last Thursday, I attended the ribbon cutting for the Dance and Entertainment Studio, which is located in the building that used to be called the Heights, but I can't. They're changing their name, and I apologize. I can't remember what it was. But
Thank you.
But they're going to be teaching all sorts of dance up there, and so you can go up there and get a dance.
I didn't see that ribbon cutting, so they must have gone through the chamber.
Yeah, it's through the chamber.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a question for you regarding the Cable Commission. Did they say anything? Because used to be on the cable stations, they would run a like a calendar, say Bayport's meetings are played on such and such a date, or Oak Park Heights. And I have noticed that the council meetings or Park Commission or Planning Commission replays are not showing up on the cable station anymore.
I don't know. We haven't talked about it, but maybe I know there's some changes around. They're losing one of those stations
Okay.
with some changes. Jordan probably knows more about it than I do.
He needs to stay in there. Right? He can't. I don't know if he's going to come out and tell me. And the other one is some of the council meetings that I noticed, like Bayport's. They all sound like they're underwater. You can't understand what they're saying if you try to watch it.
I know they're working on that because we sounded like that for a while.
Yep, and then Stillwater gets into freeze frames. So if you try to watch it live, that's why it'd be nice to watch a replay, and maybe it comes out better on a replay. But we haven't seen them. Now you have to go back to the station and do some work.
Yeah. Progress.
Okay.
Technical stuff. Yes, so we can put something up on our bulletin board that we're talking about.
Yeah, because you still have things on there for like the bags and bingo from July 26th. Maybe update a little bit.
Oh. Yeah.
Thank you.
And regarding the channel, yeah, we're in the process of converting one of our SD channels over to HD. So that might be of interest for those that want to watch local stuff as well as sports, concerts, that sort of stuff.
Okay.
HD channel.
We're going to be stars. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, so, all right, yeah, we'll
Okay.
And then we had we had the bonding tour that came through on the King plant too, which several of us were able to be at. So that's my report.
from being up here and looking at their faces, I was getting feedback of positive. They seem to be understanding what we were looking for. So we'll see what happens when the session starts in January, how far it goes. Councilmember Johnson.
I also attended the bonding tour event up at City Hall last Thursday, and the Parks Commission meeting was canceled for this month.
Thank you. Councilmember Liljegren.
Mayor, attended the Planning Commission meeting last Thursday. There was just one item on the agenda, and that is actually on our agenda tonight under new business G. And you had made mention of the JASB meeting December 1st. I believe that's 3:30.
December 1st.
December 1st, 3:30, I believe.
I
thought-
had 1 to 3, but I'm not
Oh.
sure if that's correct. So
Okay. Oh, we better double
and
check.
it's at the Bayport Town Hall.
Yes.
Or Baytown
Baytown Town Hall.
Town Hall.
Yep.
Councilmember Runk.
Yeah, I attended the Middle St. Croix meeting this month, and he gave the conditional approval for Park Dental in our city. And then I attended the CVB meeting this month, and the big news out of there was the fact that the current director, Christy, who has done a tremendous job for them and for the community, she is going to be leaving at the end of her contract, which I believe is the end of January.
Oh no, she's done fantastic.
Right, so she will be missed. And I got a memo today from Chuck saying that apparently they're planning a meeting next Wednesday to look into next. And so, and I also was at the bonding tour, so.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I can just interject back again.
Sure.
I did check that on my calendar. That is from 3 to 4:30 for the JASB meeting at
Thank you.
Baytown Town Hall.
Thank you. I had it written at home, but trying to go from memory. So I think the other meeting, there's another one, 1 to 3, that same day. Next is staff reports. Chief Hansen.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Good evening. Just a couple quick announcements from the police and fire side. One, as we come into the colder season here in the holidays, we just remind everybody to make sure your doors are locked. We've seen an increase here in stolen vehicles in the city of Oak Park Heights, the whole valley area. It's all coming out here into East Metro. And with that, we're just a quick reminder to everybody, make sure we're aware when we're in the parking lots. These are happening. We're seeing more during the daytime hours now. We're seeing a big influx here in the whole Washington County metro area as a whole. Second, we have started our Toys for Tots drive here at the police department. We have our box out here at City Hall, and then we'll have another one up at Joseph's Restaurant. So over the next 3 weeks, if anybody has toys they'd like to donate, we'll get them over to the Marines at the Care 11. There's a big law enforcement gathering there. I believe it's in 3 weeks. So we have that to look forward to as well. And then
They should be new and unwrapped. Is that correct?
yes, preferably new unwrapped toys, of course. And right now we haven't had any specific ages. As we get closer, they usually update us, and we'll push that out on our social media platform. So, and then from the fire side, I've talked with Chief Eisenberg. He just wished to pass along a couple announcements from the fire department. One, they have Santa that'll be coming through on the fire truck on Friday after Thanksgiving, which they've been doing that for years. They hit all 3 cities of Stillwater, Bayport, and Oak Park Heights. I believe they're starting at 8 o'clock in Bayport, and they make their rounds through. I don't know if they're going to update on their Facebook page the exact. They try to give a ballpark of the neighborhoods and the times. They will end at the Ace Hardware in Stillwater around noon. So, and then also just from the fire side, a safety reminder as we're in the holidays here. Obviously, there's more cooking and gathering. Colder temperatures. This is their this is their busy season, and with a lot more candles being lit. The trees and whatnot, they see an uptick in fires. So everybody just to be cautious of leaving stuff on the, make sure you're attending to everything on the stove, and be careful and mindful of your candles and where your placement near the tree.
Just say, don't burn down your house when you do the turkey outside.
That was one of the things you
Thursday.
mentioned. Don't do the turkey in the kitchen. Fry the
Right.
turkey in the kitchen or in the garage.
Right.
Either
Don't
way.
put the frozen turkey in the fryer either. So that, but
And also, I don't know if you saw the article in the paper. Somebody moved their propane torch to the inside of their house to try to warm the propane torch up and blew the house up. So
Oh, geez.
that's not a good thing to do either.
right. Yeah. No, it's their busy season. There's a lot of accessories and heating accessories that people bring in.
Yeah, be thoughtful about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you don't want their holidays ruined, right? So,
No.
Right. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chief. Are there any other staff reports?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Briefly, I think if I recall correctly, at the end of our last meeting, we had a closed session, and I can just do a brief recap of that as we
Yes.
usually do.
Mhm.
So at the end of the last city council meeting, we had a closed session to discuss pending litigation against Paul Sins, who was a resident of Stillwater who lives just adjacent to Lookout Trail in relation to some trees that he had cut down on city property. During that closed session, the council gave some direction to my office on the proceedings and where to try to go with it, but no official action was taken during the course of that meeting. And so that's the recap of that closed session. And in fact, following that closed session, we were able to negotiate what appears to be a favorable resolution of the matter to hopefully dismiss the lawsuit and be done with the matter. That is on your consent agenda tonight. And if the council has any desire to discuss it, certainly pull it off your consent agenda. But otherwise, if there's no concerns, it should be approved as part of the consent tonight.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Any other staff reports? And we'll move on to recycling award. Jennifer.
Mayor and Council Ann Vick at 5691 Orin Avenue North was chosen as the Recycling Award winner for our most recent selection. And then I also did want to tell you that the Summer Park Program Coordinator position has been put on our website, social media, the League of Minnesota Cities, and it will be posted in the Stillwater Gazette.
I did get 2 phone calls of people inquiring about it, so hopefully they put an application in.
Great. It's good to hear.
Next, we'll move on to the visitor public comments section. This is a time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on any item that's not on the agenda to come forward. Mr. Kramer? Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which is approved bills and investments, check 67484 to 67532 for the amount of $260,959.12. Check 67533 through check 67572 for a total of $1,500,196.89. Approve city council minutes from October 26, 2021. Approve Redpath and Company auditing services for December 31st, 2021. Approve home occupation permits renewals for 2022. Approve 2022 taxi licenses for FDS Enterprises doing business as A Taxi. Approve settlement offer for Lookout Trail tree damages. Approve order for replacement police department issued tasers. And joint powers agreements and resolutions relating to criminal justice data communications with the state of Minnesota.
I'll move the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Runk, second by Councilmember Johnson. Eric?
Councilmember Doherty,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Liljegren,
Yes.
Councilmember Runk,
Yes.
Mayor McComber.
Yes. We have no public hearings tonight and we have no old business, so we'll move on to new business. And the first item being water meter replacement. Mr. Kegley.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'll start with some good news. Our meter replacement project appears to be fully funded. So we've been saving for a few years. I'd estimate this project to cost between $600,000 and $750,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. We've reserved $672,000 towards this project in-house here, and then combined with another $479,000 in our ARPA funding from the federal government, we have just over $1 million. So we're in pretty good shape. And so I think now is a great opportunity to start replacing these aging meters and our aging meter reading system and take advantage of the federal funding. So, of course, there is quite a bit of work to do. These things have to be planned, and they have to be planned well. These projects can be complex, and so that's why we've asked Lee and his team to help us out here. We've got an estimated timeline and a process that Lee detailed in his memo, but for brevity, this project will take about 12 to 13 months. What happens is the winning contractor of this bidded project provides meters, software, meter reading equipment, and the labor to actually install the meters. And of course, then staff would coordinate with the contractor and the residents throughout the whole thing to make sure that the project is a success. So Lee provided a plan for a not to exceed amount of $49,300. And so that's what I'm here tonight to ask, is that you folks approve Stantec's plan for the not to exceed amount of $49,300 so we can get started on this process.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Andy? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Liljegren, second by Councilmember Doherty. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, don't go away.
Okay.
The shirt.
No, we've got more. There's more.
Next,
You know what, I
next
did
is
that-
the 2020 or 2022 mill and overlay.
Yeah, and if I can just grab my notes quick, I'll.
Okay.
So again, let's see here. We've been making pretty darn good progress on our 2015 plan for mills and overlays, and in fact, we're actually a little bit ahead of schedule. So the next area on that schedule is the area just east of us here at City Hall. I guess that would be right behind us, which we call Area 7 on your map that's in your packet. I'll refer to it as the Brecky Park neighborhood, the Swagger Park neighborhood. We'd also asked to include the area here at City Hall, our parking lot, our entrance in and on Oak Park Boulevard North. It's pretty rough. So in any case, the exact cost of these projects are just not known. I did estimate about a $600,000 project cost. We do have a balance of $528,000 in our mill and overlay budget. We also have some small cities grant funding that we can use at $103,000. So hopefully that's enough. If it isn't, after bidding this project, you folks would have the option to pull from your street reconstruction fund, which has just over $3 million, I believe. Of course, as in previous mill and overlay projects, we've asked Lee's team again. They do a fantastic job to assist us, and they would carry out the same roles for this mill and overlay project as they have in the last, which is essentially manage it, design it, bid it, and then do the inspections and the construction management portion of that project. However, tonight's proposal is simply for Stantec to design and to bid the project. They've provided a proposal for $43,500, and so I am asking for your approval to authorize Stantec to move forward on this for a not to exceed amount of $43,500.
Quick question.
Yep.
Looking at your timeline, this is going to be done at approximately the same time that MnDOT's going to be doing the mill and overlay on Highway 36, and we will also have Norrell torn apart, correct? So people will love us.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be a very busy year. It's going to be tough, but
Gonna say, it doesn't
And don't we
take-
have some trail stuff that needs to be done as well?
yes, we do.
Okay.
Some patching. Yep,
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. It'll
you
be
bet.
July.
We're gluttons for punishment, Mayor.
Well, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Runk, second by Councilmember Johnson. Was there a resolution with this? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
The mill and overlay really doesn't disrupt the neighborhood that much.
No, it's just the tar.
A little bit, but not much. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate
you.
it, folks.
Next is 2022 meeting dates. Is that you, Jennifer?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I did provide for you in your packet just a calendar for 2022 where I highlighted your typical meeting dates, which are usually always fall on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. There are a couple of conflicts to note for 2022, and that being the first Tuesday in August happens to be primary election day, and the second Tuesday, and then the second Tuesday in November also happens to be election day, general election day. So keep those in mind. Canvassing of election results does, by Minnesota statute, have to happen between the 3rd and 10th day following the general election date. So in the past, you have either canceled your first meeting in November and then just held a special election for canvassing, or rescheduled your first meeting in November for a brief meeting and canvassing. So take note of that. Those were the only conflicts I noted. I did look up the dates for the conference for the League of Minnesota Cities, should that happen in person, and your June meetings do not conflict with that. Also, the council in years past has considered canceling the first meetings in June, July, and August, and sometimes the second meeting in December. So those things can be considered as well.
I think we should, follow that same pattern of
Yeah.
canceling those. I did look up to see when the National League of Cities conferences are, and the Congressional City Conference falls for that first meeting in March. And then the City Summit, which takes place in November, is scheduled for that week of the 13th to the 19th. So if we were going to do canvassing, it'd probably have to be done by like the 11th.
The 11th, you can't do it because that's a holiday.
Well, that's right, Veterans Day.
Yeah.
But, prior to that conference,
Should we just do it on the 10th?
Should we do it on the 10th?
that'd probably be perfect. So then we'll be dropping the first meetings June, July, and August, changing the November 8th meeting to the 10th.
I do have a question for
Sure.
Kevin, possibly. When they say between the 3rd and 10th day following the general election, are they counting the date of the general election, or would it be? Because if it would be the 3rd date following, the 10th is only 2 days later.
Yeah, I'd say typically it'd be, if it says following the election, I think that's not counting the day of the election. It's
Yeah.
always 3 days following, starting the day after.
Are we
Okay.
still allowed to do next year the virtual meeting? So if someone was at the National League conference, could we just have that person Zoom in?
Up to 3 times a year, yes.
Yes.
Is that
Times a year.
10 business days?
No, calendar days.
Just calendar
Yep.
days? Okay. So then it would have to be done sometime in that
should we do it on
week
the
of the 13th.
14th tentatively, and then just
Hopefully it would be in person. I
Yeah.
mean, last year and this year, the National League has had to go virtual just because of the situation that's going on. And who knows what'll happen by that, but if that's a virtual meeting, there's no problem with, Jennifer, you or me being here in person. Why don't we do
So
it
we
for
just
the
go the 14th and
Why don't
we'll
we do
change
the
it if we
14th and
have
we'll
to.
just wing it, and as it
Yeah.
gets closer, then we'll have a better idea. We can always move that back and forth if we need to.
and are we canceling the second meeting in December?
Yes.
And then
And then as far as March 8th, now I know you tend to go to the congressional one, but who knows if it's going to be virtual again.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we should cancel it.
I
or-
think we can keep it, and if need be, I can Zoom in if that happens,
Okay.
or whoever goes can Zoom in.
Yeah, I don't know if Jen was planning to go there this time.
I haven't looked into it. So
Well, the registration started yesterday, so the
Oh.
earlier you register, you get the discount
Okay.
rates. So that, just so you know that.
okay, thanks.
I was going to register anyway, just because I'll do it virtual regardless. Okay. So you have all those dates down?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. So is a motion to approve those dates?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Liljegren, second by Councilmember Doherty. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Scope. Next is scope and fee amendment for engineering services for Norrell Avenue, 60th Street reconstruction. Eric, is that you?
Yep. So certainly they could chime in, but Mayor and Council, so Adam Josephson from MnDOT has reached out to us, inquiring if the city would be amenable to a trail addition along the east side of Norrell on the frontage road area. Philosophically, I thought certainly the council and the city would be interested in any trail connectivity, especially from an ADA compliance. However, they're in talking with Adam. Well, we're not going to fund that on the front end, and we said, well, it's a good project. However, we estimate that our costs are probably going to be tight as it is, and this could be $100,000 trail. Pick a number. So he went back to talk to his folks, and ultimately they've offered that if the city's willing to essentially maintain that area in perpetuity, it would be conveyed to the city, but they would pay for the total cost of the installation in the form of a lump sum. The ultimate lump sum number they would propose would take into account Stantec's engineering costs for design, what have you, as they cannot commit upfront to those design costs. So we'd have to make a high guess on what that lump sum agreement would be. We'd probably work those numbers into the final agreement, construction agreement with MnDOT, and the layout provided by Stantec is generally showing where it is, and probably would be a good connection. So, Lee, with that, did you have any other things to add?
That pretty much sums it up.
So, if the council's comfortable with the trail and approving the connectivity, the estimate is $22,300 for that design work and incorporation into the plan set. Ultimately, we'd be refunded by the state.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, I have no problem.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Doherty, second by Councilmember Runk. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next is the Bayport Fire Services Agreement request for further discussion. I attended, I'll have Eric jump in here too. I attended, we have these advisory meetings. We used to have them more often than this, but because of COVID, this was the first one for quite a while. And there was a discussion, I don't know, Eric, did you give that all out to everybody, the PowerPoints that were done at the meeting as far as the runs and all that kind of thing, and then the contract that was discussed? And then there was the discussion going back and forth was, should the advisory committee meet a little more often and talk about some of the issues that came up with contract? I had a bunch of questions going forward as to I don't have the answers for. No, they didn't have the answers for either. But I think by having these roundtable discussions, and you see the people that were involved in it, to go forward to get some of those answers. You know, we're not committed to anything to say yes, no, or anything. Everything has to come back to the council, obviously. But you know, you see in Eric's paragraph 1, you know, some of the ideas of what need to be discussed. I had a few more other than that. Anyway, Eric, what did you want to add?
You know, that is essentially what they're asking you folks for, is to begin to deviate away from your current agreement. In what capacity, they don't stipulate to or outline. We know you have a 15-year agreement, 14-year agreement, 15-year agreement with them, and you're essentially halfway through. I'm sure they are struggling with their costs. They certainly stated as much, and they're looking for ideas, options, concerns to express. However, as you folks have committed to, you're already paying 52% of their budget, more than half. By the time you're done with the agreement, you will have expended $5.2 million. So, as the mayor indicated, there's a lot of ideas that could be talked about and probably should be talked about, because maybe you want to have a longer term agreement, something that brings you a better benefit in the long term, because maybe at the end of 7 years you'll have more questions. Maybe there'll be a better option. I don't know. But
one of the ones that came to my mind was this one sheet that shows the roster of their 23 members, and they have 2 members that have over 30 years, 4 members that have 20 to 29 years, you know, retirement phase out. And a lot of departments are seeing more go with having full-time, not necessarily the full department, but some full-time firefighters, because they're having trouble getting volunteers. Now, Bayport, right now, it does not look like they have that issue. But 7 years ago, who could have predicted that some of the things that are happening now would have happened then? And right now, how can we predict what's going to happen in 7 years? So some of those questions, and you know, the one thing that is on Adams' memo, it says, Bayport does not have any specific terms or rate change proposals at this time. Just mainly to have discussion about some of these questions.
So are they looking for a number of people from each council that's represented underneath this contract to
Well, that's what,
partake in a?
okay.
I would be interested if that's
Sure.
if that's
So
what they're
what-
looking at from
What
our
we can
council.
gather, certainly from a staff perspective, Chief Hansen and Jenny Pinsky and I also attended. They want to talk about their costs and their concerns, and certainly those are legitimate. However, as I expressed at the meeting, none of these things can be off the table. What are those things that are on or off the table? I don't know, but it can't be benched from the Bayport retains sole control over the operations of it, and it's simply a request for more funding. Maybe that works. I don't know, but we wanted to make sure that that element of the conversation is clear. And so what we as staff are recommending to you is you send your finance director, who's been involved in many fire discussions and fire funding, certainly your chief of police, who is your primary emergency services person, and potentially two of you to listen to what they have to say. And my concern with it is that it would digress into a long, drawn out, conversation that, I understand people have concerns and some people might have angst about costs and such, but you do have an agreement and it's a service contract. So what we would frame it up is have a couple meetings, come back to put it in a box, come back and then kind of update everybody and then see where it goes. And that's really.
Gonna say, I would want to see them do some things, because one of the things they mentioned is equipment costs. And I said, have they been putting aside every year? I mean, we have the chief, the previous chiefs have always provided us with the information concerning our squads, so that we knew that when, like I said tonight, the squads were sitting there, I said, they're all paid for. I said, have they been doing this all along?
They did provide the advisory committee some of that information, but it's been a while, so I really think we should have an updated amount as far as they had a projection like that this truck needs to be changed out in year whatever, and what the approximate cost would be. If they had to change out the aerial truck, what the approximate cost would be and what year that was. So I think that's something that we could request with these meetings, get an updated amount as to what have they put away.
The other thing is, and I said, when you say about 7 years ago, I want to say it was 20 years ago or so, I was sitting with a member of the Stillwater Fire Department who also was worked for the State Fire Marshal's office. And he made the comment to me at that time that there was going to have to be some type of a broader look when it came to equipment, because individual cities can't simply afford to purchase the equipment that we've been used to. And I said, I know that I always go back to when Stillwater bought their ladder truck. I remember their fire chief at that time saying, well, they had to have a fire truck. They had to have this truck. It had to be, at that time, Bayport offered them an 80-foot ladder. Well, no, it had to be a 100-foot ladder. And that he was, every time we have a structure fire, I immediately require my guys to call Bayport. And realistically, calling Bayport was a legitimate option, because you basically now have $1 million piece of equipment, and you have $1 million piece of equipment in Stillwater, and you have $1 million piece of equipment in Lake Elmo. And do we really need $3 million pieces of equipment for as often as they're used? And I know a few years ago that there was a meeting, at least one meeting, I know it was here, because I came in for another meeting, where you had the representatives from Lake Elmo, Stillwater, and Bayport here discussing some type of a
Us administrators types.
What?
I think it was us administrators, and then we roped in the mayors a couple.
But I mean, the idea was that this equipment issue is something that needs to be addressed. And so I think they need to do some reaching out to Stillwater and, Lake Elmo, I don't know, Lower St. Croix, to get some type of a realistic equipment number, not just say, well, we're going to continue on this process of everybody has to have 2 engines, everybody has to have 2 aerial truck, and nobody questioning it. It's like nobody questions it. It's like, well, it's for safety reasons we have to do this. Well, I think now we're getting to the point where it's, before they come and say we need more money for equipment, let's have a justification as to they need to do some work on justifying their equipment. And I know Mike Pauline from Stillwater has said to me that we got to get together and talk about this. It doesn't make any sense to have 3 ladder trucks within 10 miles of each other. We never need, you don't need that for a safety reason. The only time we've had multiple ladder trucks in use recently was when the old prison burned, and all they were doing at that point was putting the fire out. They weren't saving, It's not an issue of personal safety. I mean, when that comes down, that's more of a, so I mean.
I know in the past it's come up too about service districts, and some cities that have gone ahead with them have been able to show the pros and cons and who's been successful, which is hardly any of them, and most of them have fallen apart.
Yeah.
But like I said, 7 years ago, things were different. Maybe the next 7 years, that might be the vision of the future. But without having those discussions, how are you going to know?
I also second that, because I was wondering too, I believe most of the cities in this group also routes through the sheriff's department for their police services. So maybe looking at, I don't know what the chief would think, he'd have more opinions than I do, but maybe routing it through the county sheriff office and seeing if they have ideas of how we can merge our fire to make it more efficient in a regional capacity.
No, I don't know the details because I just happened to read a story in the paper. But apparently Ramsey County has instituted a different system now concerning their fire departments. And it's that basically if there's a call, the closest fire department is the one that's called. And I mean, it was, the reason I saw it was controversy because City of St. Paul was actually responding to calls outside of the city of St. Paul, and that's their department. And I said, okay, that would make sense because, like, if we had a fire at Stillwater Motor, Bayport wouldn't be who you'd call. Who you called into that? It would be Lake Elmo because Lake Elmo was stationed is straight up the highway there. So I mean, Bayport's got to do some more. In some ways, they have to do some more work themselves before they come and say, before they can make any pitches for money.
Well, yeah, because I know when we did this agreement 7 years ago, we took some heat for basically helping to fund their fire department. And it was a good arrangement for us, and that's what I told people that called and I talked to. I said, and to change out of that before it's completed would be very difficult for me to get behind. I have no problems discussing things, and I would be happy to be one of the council members going if needed, and to talk about it. But talking is always good. But it would take a lot to get me to agree to
That would be
change something.
that's why I spoke up right away, because I feel the same way as Chuck does on that, from the standpoint that there was a lot of questions about us joining this, and we were getting the city, Eric and everybody, we did a great job of signing a 15-year contract and getting what we needed, and now having to go back and wanting to open that, I would have a lot of questions before I would ever jump to say we need to change the contract.
Well, and I think that this might be a two-part discussion. It's the short term of filling our contract and what do we need to do in the short term, but also long term, because I see this problem with equipment and expenses just continuing and becoming worse.
Yeah, I think there's some fair questions that group could hash through that sound like they need to be hashed.
Yes.
When we're
So I
providing,
would suggest that because
Who are
it's all the chairs, you know, the mayors and the chairs of the town board. So myself and Councilmember Littlejohn spoke up first, and then have Councilmember Doherty be the alternates, because I know sometimes you run into conflicts that, but because of open meeting, that we don't have three of us there. But does that seem fine?
That's
Chuck's
fine.
busy. I could be the alternate.
Mike, Mike, that's fine too. I think we're on the same wavelength, so I feel comfortable.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll just have
Mike and Mike.
myself, then Mike Liljegren, and
Yep.
then Mike Runk
Mike
will be
Runk
the
will be the
alternate.
alternate.
And you two could contact each other
Yep.
if you can't be there. How's
Yep.
that? Okay.
Sounds good.
I'll make that motion for the 2 meetings before next February, and have you guys be the discussion delegation.
Great. And if you have any questions that you want us to ask, and you know you can't be there, you know, maybe run it through Eric, and he'll let us know what questions need to be asked. How's that?
Perfect.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Johnson, second by Councilmember Doherty. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
I just you were comfortable with the chief and Betty Cruz?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yes.
All right, and I don't want to. I have a short exercise just to share with you. This is the. I'll keep it to 2 minutes. I promise. So this is your fair share formula that we have with 2021 with Bayport, Oak Park Heights, and the 2 townships, and it's based on 2 criteria. The first one is a tax capacity value, and the second one is annual number of fire runs. So there's a formula that's built into it. It's split in half. So right now, Oak Park Heights, obviously, we have the King plant in that formula, and that's $13.06 million of tax capacity. So you're the lion's share of the value that's attributed to the formula. And of course, then we know all about our fire run data, and for 2021, it uses a 5-year average of the preceding 5 years. So in this case, 2015 to 2019, and we take a 5-year running average, and then we take those numbers and we drop them down here into this formula, and then we come out to be about 53% of the fire department billable budget. So the city paid about $272,000 in 2021. So what's going to happen? And I think this is something that we talked about this with the commit at the workshop the other day. Is well, what happens is this number is going to drop by roughly a third. The city's tax capacity. That's the King plant going away. So that number is going to go from 13 million down to about 8.7 million. Hopefully I got that right. And then we also know that we are working on our fire and rescue run data, trying to shave those numbers down. And our average is going to drop probably from 700 something. Let's just say it drops to 300, which has been a little higher than our last 2 years' experience. So if those things actually happen and nothing else changes in the formula, the city's cost drops from $272,000 to $188,000. And it shifts those other costs to the other 3 parties. So 2 ways to think about this is the King plant subsidizes everybody. Certainly Oak Park Heights on the front end, but really on the back end for the other 3 parties. And our dropping of the number of runs also is a significant hit to who they bill. So if nothing else happens in the contract in year 7 and it gets renewed, Oak Park Heights costs drop to $188,000 from $272 in today's numbers. So something's going to happen.
Well, at that meeting, there were 5 points that I heard, and I repeated it to them that, is this what I heard, and is this what you want to discuss? And that there was consensus that what came up was the capital funding regarding equipment in the long term, full-time firefighters and what the current trends are, the maintenance of the building, the retirement of the King plant and how that's going to shift the formulas, and then staffing. You know, some cities have a full-time fire chief, or they don't. You know, they just have theirs elected by the other firefighters. So those were some of the, and Alan
Well,
is,
even that is that a good idea?
Well, that's for discussion.
Yeah.
But that would be something that
Mm-hmm.
should be discussed.
Because
Is it a
Alan
good-
said that he was at the higher end of, the chart I showed you that, who has 20 years, who has over that. So as he retires, that could shift how they plan things for the future. So that's a point
What
for us.
were those 5 again, Mayor? I got capital.
Capital funding
improvements,
for the
full-time?
long-term equipment, full-time firefighters and the current trends in staffing those firefighters. The maintenance of the building,
Maintenance.
which was not addressed in the contract, and I went back through it, I couldn't find it either. So
Okay.
the maintenance of the building, the retirement of the King plant.
Yep.
And how it's going to shift that formula. And then staffing.
Well, the maintenance of the building
I had missed maintenance.
was Bayport's responsibility because it was their building. I mean that was very clear. Was that it's not our building?
Correct.
Bayport was very clear on the fact that that's their building.
Uh-huh.
That's their fire trucks. That's everything that's there. They own.
The sad thing is
We don't
when
have
this was
anything to do with it.
negotiated, who was there? I mean, their administrator wasn't there. Board members have changed, council members have changed, administrators have changed. The ones that worked on the contract, that history is gone. So Eric, being one that was there for it all, is going to be relied on for what
I
happened.
told them they're wrong.
What happened?
I mean,
I think another question kind of off this. I know that they're switching to now calling a lot of cancer-related deaths of firefighters on duty
Right.
deaths. Is that also going to change some of their financial obligations to their?
Well,
Volunteers?
that's a good question to ask.
Well, that's a good question. But those
But
employees.
actually, I think that falls a little bit on the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust because
Right.
they're the insurer.
in Bayport. They're essentially Bayport
employees.
Bayport employees, whether they're volunteers or not.
Yep.
Our city and the 2 townships only have a service contract with them.
right. I mean, they were. Bayport was basically really clear that this was going to be their fire department, and that all we were supposed to do was provide them with money. And now, when they're having financial issues, now suddenly it's, well, we're going to come back to you guys and help us solve this problem that we made. And I mean,
Okay, so everybody's all set on that, and we'll just we'll find out somewhere what the actual time is. I know it was mentioned, John Hall from Baytown mentioned offering the Baytown Town Hall to have a meeting there. Otherwise, they've always been at the fire station.
Sure.
Okay, so then we'll move on to any more discussion on that topic?
Other than the fact that I just remember Susan coming in here trying to tell us off, and that soured me a lot of it because most of what she was saying wasn't true. So
Okay.
she
but-
didn't give credit to our police department for what they do.
All right, we'll move on to Lookout Trail reconstruction. Consider change order number 2. Is this you, Eric?
Lee, you're far more articulate on this stuff than I. So
Mayor and members of the council, during the project, the existing cable guardrail, which is located just north of 61st Street and then to the north on the road, the concrete anchor blocks were removed as part of the project. And once those were removed and we inspected them, there was deterioration and there was concerns about safety of those blocks going forward. The contract did originally say, salvage and reinstall. However, the decision was made in the field that probably from a safety perspective, those should be replaced. The contractor has submitted the price on those. And we'd had some discussions, and I had discussions with the administrator, and we felt that it would be fair for the city to contribute half of that cost in that regard. So basically, which would be $6,000, which would revise the contract amount to $1,014,296.51. However, as we like to see on projects, we come in under budget at times. And so at this point, we think that the total cost of the project is going to be about $965,000, which is about $10,000 under the original budget that the city had. So we would humbly request the approval of the change order.
Lee, one thing, could you talk about Dressel's work in the field?
Yes. and I can say this because we're about 99.999% done. This particular project is probably the smoothest reconstruct project that I've ever experienced in my career. And that was due to a contractor who was very responsible, cooperative, timely with their work. So they did an excellent job. We also had a very good inspector on the project, but I think most of all, the residents along the road were extremely cooperative and helpful to a person. So I think it's been a really nice project. It's been very smooth, and I think we have an excellent product out there. So
Thank you.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, that is good to hear.
I'll make a motion to approve the change order.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Runk, second by Councilmember Liljegren. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we'll move on to LCI Landscapes, Reclamation and Grading Conditional Use Permit at 5675 Newell Circle. Is this you, Eric, or Lee? Or
Scott?
Scott.
Scott.
Sorry, Scott.
It's been waiting patiently.
Tim
I'm so
O'Connor
sorry.
has made this application. He represents LCI Landscapes. It's for a conditional use permit in that they're doing some grading in the backyard, adding a boulder retaining wall. We have an ordinance that states that any land reclamation or grading over 25 cubic yards of material per acre requires a conditional use permit. This is about 40 cubic yards of material. The purpose of the boulder wall is essentially just to level out a portion of that rear portion of the yard. We've seen a lot of that done in this area apparently. Our city engineer Lee has provided comments as found as attachment to the report, indicate the wall will not alter the existing drainage patterns, but he recommended the wall be placed no closer than 3 feet from the rear property line. Mr. O'Connor was at the Planning Commission meeting and had no issue with making that adjustment. So with that, the Planning Commission recommended with the four staff, favorably with the four staff conditions, and that's also reflected in your resolution for action tonight. Any questions?
Any questions for Scott?
I'd move approval.
Maybe one quick question to Eric.
Yeah.
Did we? I know we had one of the residents that abuts the property showed up right at the end of the planning commission, thinking it was at 7 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock. Was going to just had a few questions. Do you believe those are resolved with that?
I think so.
President?
In walking out there with him, last month or whenever it was, with Chuck
Yep.
Leroux.
Yep.
So I think so. His concern is it going to add water to his backyard where they abut? And that answer is we don't believe so. The water's already going that direction anyway. We also put a stipulation in the conditions that they can't directly tie their downspouts, so to speak, underground and then outlet below the retaining wall. So there's going to continue the overland drainage. I think it'll actually be an improvement back there from what's there, as you see in the pictures. I think.
Okay. Perfect. Yep. Just wanted to check. I know he showed up and he didn't get to speak his piece at the planning commission because it was already over. So
I
just
know
wanted to
we've
make
had-
sure that they were taken care of.
We've had other feedback from other neighbors, encouraging them to complete their project promptly. So we tried to be flexible to these owners and keep the neighborhood happy. So
Sounds good.
Okay,
Thank
there's
you.
there's a motion by Councilmember Doherty. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Doherty, second by Councilmember Runk. Eric?
Councilmember Doherty,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Liljegren,
Yes.
Councilmember Runk,
Yes.
Mayor McCumber.
Yes. Next is comments on Washington County Capital Improvement Plan 2022 to 2026. Eric, is this you?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Council. Every year, the county does offer its capital improvement plan for public comment. As you see in your packet, County Project RB 2652 is the 58th Street Extension, County Highway 15 South segment, using their terminology. in thinking about that project, obviously the city's penned a number of communications to Washington County about its concerns relative to impacts of traffic, costs, cost sharing, what have you. However, they do offer an opportunity for further comment when they put the CIP out for comments. And so staff prepared a resolution that outlines some of those concerns. And fundamentally, it talks about three issues. First, that the justification that they put in there in the document outlines that the city of Oak Park Heights has participated in delineating the scope or the details of the project being jointly developed. Obviously, we've not participated in that conversation in any meaningful way, shape, or form, and that indicates that Oak Park Heights either acquiesces to the project or somehow developed the project in tandem with them, which certainly is not the case. The other two are a little more interesting in terms of the comments, because I think that's more of a factual clarification. But the other 2 points are the CIP talks about the project being 10.3 million or 9.1 million, depending on which, or 9.3 million, depending on which line you want to reference in the page. However, their submission to the state of Minnesota, part of their Washington County sales tax increase, outlined it was 18.1 million. So certainly the commentary is, which is it, or what's the real number? Doesn't matter. I think it matters. Just make sure it's a correct number. And lastly, in mirroring your comments you've had in the past with concerns with the project, and now that the Washington County has installed a slip lane in conjunction with its Manning interchange, you can get, depending on one wants to time it, from the top of the ramp at Stillwater Boulevard to the top of a ramp at Manning in approximately 52 seconds. And so their logic for the project their logic for the project is to provide north-south connectivity for Manning Avenue. Well, the frontage road certainly will not be used if there's a 52-second option, or even a slightly longer right turn section from the high school. I know our city engineer may have driven that, and I don't know what your time of that travel was.
From the right turn at the high school there, 58th and Stillwater, to the top of the slip lane on Manning was about 132 seconds.
What was the distance? Is it still 1,500 feet from the end of one ramp to the beginning of another? That's still the same, isn't it?
I didn't measure that.
More or less. It's
Well, because I just noticed that MnDOT has there's a comment in here from MnDOT. So the fact that they did it on one side, not the other, I'm just curious, is there a distance issue that there's not 1,500 feet?
So we talk about in what we ask in the edits to the CIP is to say, hey, Washington County, if you would, instead of outlining the project in the, rather delete that and instead hold a public process that would again outline the needs and impacts of the roadway, but also to include a westbound work one would be an effective alternative.
Yeah, I would agree that whole piece just baffles me as to why that would be like if they wouldn't have put the westbound slip lane in, taking that road from Associated Eye Care and running it down through the valley and back up Manning, coming in, what they wanted. It makes no sense why the county go through all of that other than that's what the developer believes they want, versus put a slip lane in on the eastbound lane. You already have it up to Highway 5 or whatever the county road, 14 now. From that standpoint, even if they add another turn lane in there
At the top of
so they have two to the right and two to the left, that's still a heck of a lot cheaper price tag than what they're looking to do. I don't know, that it just baffles me.
Okay, what I want to point out is I attended the county meetings that they had concerning Manning 36, what they refer to as auxiliary lanes, which we're talking about slip lanes. They included the eastbound lane between the ramps. And in the 2020 adopted plan, the approved plan as they refer to it, they took it out. And at that time, it didn't make any sense to me. And I actually sent an email to Commissioner Kriesel in June of last year. And I asked him that I said, I noticed that they had made this change. And I said, it didn't seem to make any sense to me to take it out because it would be make the situation safer and faster and more convenient. About the lanes was that they took it out because they checked with MnDOT and there was adequate room on the south side. So apparently they're referring to. And it says that it was removed based on that basis that there was adequate room for the merger. But then they also added that it did not meet the county's goals as was described, and that on 36 off of the highway. And that's why they were suggesting that they were going to build this 58th Street extension. And at that time, they were citing the fact that it was going to be built in 2022, so that when the project was done, that more inconvenient to use the highway in hopes of forcing people to use the service lane. Well, now, even if they build it, this service lane, it wouldn't be built until 2025. So why wouldn't they build that auxiliary lane now? Because, as I said, what's going to happen is when next year, the first thing that a commuter who's using it every day, why did they make it so nice on the north side and miserable on the south side? Because the bus is going to have to merge onto the highway. And it was interesting because there was an article in the Star Tribune just in the last month talking about the 62 crosstown project that they were doing because they installed a lane temporarily over there, and now people have gotten so used to using it that when the MnDOT came in and took the lane out, the people are all upset because the one person described it was heaven to him. So I don't see why the county doesn't just add that lane back in because it makes sense from a safety point of view, from a convenience point of view. They're not going to have this alternative that they were hoping to force people onto. And as far as I'm concerned, hopefully he doesn't take offense. I think it's bad engineering when you try and change somebody's behavior by doing the engineering. So
I just have a question because Mike, I did see you at a couple of their board meetings and introducing yourself as a council member from Oak Park Heights. So you were representing all of us.
I made clear that it was there. I was a councilman, but that I was making the statement was on my own.
I just want to make sure that there wasn't a gray area with the county perceiving that that was the.
No, I could, but I introduced
from all of us.
But I made sure that it wasn't in my prepared statement. I made sure that I made clear that I was there representing myself.
So do we need a motion on the resolution?
Yes.
So what staff did is we think about this in terms of the commentary. So we prepared a resolution and a draft letter as a potential way to think about all these things. You know, you're not necessarily required to do any of them, but just try to get ideas out there. So we do need to reach out back to the county in some form of communication. So just the letter seemed easier to me versus sending them a resolution. But yeah, if you're comfortable with it. So.
Is there a second?
Second.
Eric?
Councilmember Doherty.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Liljegren.
Yes.
Councilmember Runk.
Yes.
Mayor McCumber.
Yes, but kind of begrudging. I'd love to get some more questions answered.
Sure.
I don't think we're going to get them, but I'd love to get them.
Well,
Ask some more questions.
well, there actually is a
Well, of course.
make.
There's
Yes.
a public hearing on the entire CIP. So if anybody wanted to attend and engage some of these issues, that's also a time.
Yeah, because it rolls into my next one on the agenda.
There you go.
Okay, the next is Osgood Avenue westbound turn lane onto Trunk Highway 36. Request to state and Washington County. I think any of us that goes this way northbound on Osgood trying to make a left turn onto Highway 36. You can be stacked up. Thursday, I sat through 3 lights trying to make a left-hand turn. That's how bad it was stacked up. And then you've got people that are trying to cross over from the Holiday or the frontage road, and it's really quite a mess. I know the county is going to be doing the frontage road. It's been pushed back to next year, but they've done it at other intersections to put a double left turn lane and adjust the timing. If you look at the distance that's out here at 36, they've got right turn lane, 2 through lanes. They easily could make 2 double left turn lanes and make that adjustment with paint. I mean, it's not reconstruction. So I would suggest sending a letter to the county and MnDOT to fix that intersection.
Doing it with paint, I mean, is there enough room?
Would it
Yeah,
It'd be
there's-
putting a second left turn lane.
Right, but
It's
I mean,
already here. It's already here. The lanes are already here.
would it be straight and a left, or would it just be
Okay, there's a right turn lane, then there's 2 straight lanes,
okay?
and there's the
Right.
one left one. The amount of people that go straight is very minimal. The ones that need to turn left is a lot. And especially when you have certain times of day when Anderson is letting out of work, the prison is letting, the correction, the max is letting out. That can get just awful. Or when people are trying to get to work in the morning. It just, there's quite a few mornings I was out there at 7:30 in the morning and it's terrible.
Well, and then Stagecoach has been closed on and off the last week.
Yeah.
Too, so it brings a lot.
But this
there's
has been
yeah,
ongoing. This
yeah.
isn't just recent.
Yeah, but there's plenty of room. I mean, they really have a lane that they don't use.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the thing,
Yeah,
is there enough
just a
lane?
shift over.
It's just basically with this one that goes straight, the left straight one, the one furthest to the west.
Yep.
Paint an arrow. It's a double turn left. It's paint.
From an engineering perspective, can you do that without getting a lot of confusion with people?
There's enough clearance through the intersection. The timing would have to be that the northbound goes at one time and the southbound goes at another time. No different than what they have right now on the east-west on 36.
Yeah, it would be subject to the timing, and obviously the traffic counts and what we see out there would need to corroborate, all of this. But I mean, if that's what you're seeing out there, then I would imagine that the numbers would probably bear it out.
And would they have to do the same thing on the north side? Take the,
They certainly have the room to do it, but I don't know that there's that many people that would be doing a left turn going into Wisconsin. There might be. I don't know.
Would it be okay if, would the council comfortable with just having Lee spend a little time to just run some of the numbers, or was it geometrics you want to call it, or
Geometrics, yeah.
Sure.
just say, is that
Just to back it up and then send a letter on to the county about it.
Sure, we could look at that.
have a look at it.
And, they might say, well, it's only at certain times of the day, but, certain times of the day, like I said, I've been out there almost every morning at 7:30 in the morning and, you can't get through that intersection.
Well,
It's
plus
just
look how
nuts.
many houses are going to get built down at the other end of that road.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there a motion to have our staff work on that and get that off?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Johnson, second by Councilmember Doherty. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, are there any other council items or announcements?
Hang on a second. I had something written here that I was gonna read, and I ended up going to the item I had for Gary Kriesel, so I forgot to go back and get it. So, okay, and I had some help with this from Carly, so it's written down. This is to show our staff appreciation for their work this year, especially given the changing circumstances and stress of COVID-19. Carly and I are thinking about bringing up coffee and snacks for staff members sometime in December or January. She says surprise, but with Jenny sitting here is hardly surprise.
And the chief and the public
And-
works
I'm gonna
director.
We'll have
say,
to keep the
so-
secret.
Surprise sometime in December or early January. If anyone else wants to help out or join us, email me and we can coordinate it. That's all I had.
Okay. Any other council announcements? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Liljegren, second by Councilmember Johnson, and all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Just when we get the spaghetti.
Yep.
Long meeting.